I do too. Hello, good evening. Welcome. If you don't mind, please take your seats. I'm going to walk around. Hello. Oh, this works too. Good evening. Welcome to the very, very first Stockton Community Steering Committee meeting for AB 617. Thank you so much for being here. Yay! It's been a long time coming. So, my name is Crystal Lazard. I am with an organization called the Institute for Local Governments. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan, good governance organization, and I'm here to be your facilitator. What is a facilitator? Mostly, I'm here to make sure everybody is heard, that we have productive meetings, that we stay on time, and that we get things done. So I am a resource for all of you. If at any point anything is happening that you don't think is very comfortable or enjoy, please reach out. If we are taking notes and we misrepresent something you said, please correct us. I'm here. So we're going to start today with some welcome and introductions, and thank you in advance for participating in this icebreaker that I'll explain in a few minutes. Then we're going to hear from the Air District to talk about the boundary. So first and foremost, we do need to establish the project boundary for 617, so we're going to do that. And then once that's done, we're going to hear from our community co-host lead, Jonathan, who's hiding from me. Jonathan, who's going to lead a discussion about the charter. And then we're going to hear from the California Air Resources Board from Scott, right here, who's going to do a presentation on the blueprint, which is this document right in front of you. And then we'll wrap up with some next steps and talk about the reoccurring dates of this meeting. Any questions so far? Sorry? Any Spanish? Is there anybody in the room that would like Spanish language translation? Sorry?
¿Hay alguien en la sala que necesita interpretación al inglés desde el español? Al parecer no, gracias.
Okay. There is food over here, if you didn't notice. At any point during this meeting, please help yourself. Restrooms are through the back. And again, at any point, help yourself. We also have a special person in the audience over here. I want to introduce Stockton Councilmember Fugazi. So, yay! Thank you for being here. Just a quick note, she is here as a resident to watch and support this process. Because she is a voting member of the Air District's governing board, she will not be a formal voting member of this community steering committee. Just, but she's here, which is excellent and supporting. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to the Air District to do a quick welcome, and then we'll get going.
Thank you, Crystal. Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Hayashi. I'm a Deputy Air Pollution Control Officer with the district. I got to meet many of you at the kickoff meeting in January, and it's so nice to see so many familiar faces and new faces that going to look forward to getting to know better through this process. This is our third community steering committee, selected community, and just really excited to work with you, to hear the issues and develop and help you put together the community emission reduction program. Would like to mention that our air pollution control officer, Samir Sheikh, really wanted to be here tonight. He does place a really high priority in these meetings and getting to know the community as well. Unfortunately, he had a family issue come up, so he was not able to attend. But thank you. It is a really important program, and it really needs the voices of the community to make this a successful process. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time and being a part of the process.
Thanks, Ryan.
You want me to, let me use it. I have a lavalier. I don't like handing once I have a microphone, I get nervous. I'm sorry. It's just something. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's honestly, it's been an honor. It's not been an honor. It's an honor to see you guys here, familiar faces, new faces. Hope we can connect, build relationships. City of Stockton, it's beautiful. This is what I see when I think of City of Stockton. Having everyone here from all cultures and backgrounds and expertise and capacities. It's really good to see you guys. So my name is Jonathan Pruitt. I should have introduced myself before then. My name is Jonathan Pruitt. I'm from Catholic Charities, Diocese of Stockton, the Environmental Justice Program. And so we've been really trying to be the forefront, trying to get this process to be part, like City of Stockton, to get this process going. And so now that we're here, we're ready, we're getting started. And so hopefully you guys have your questions. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know, let Valley Air District know. The whole process is supposed to keep you guys, comfortable as possible. If you guys need anything, let us know. Yeah. So let's get started.
This is a really big group, which is very exciting. But instead of doing the pass the mic, name, whatever, we're going to do our introductions through a very, thank you in advance, fun icebreaker. Speed dating. So in a minute, I'm going to ask everybody, and I mean everybody who wants to participate, you don't have to, but I'd like you to stand up and get in two, hopefully co-equal in length lines in here. You're going to be sharing your name and kind of why you're here-ish. But really, there's this question, if you could instantly become an expert in something, what would it be? So for example, Jessica is going to pair up with Jamie, and they're going to have 1 minute to answer that question, introduce themselves, and just get to know each other a little bit. And then there's going to be a ding, which will sound like that. And then Jessica is going to take one step to the right and then talk to me. Jonathan is going to now talk to Jamie. The person at the very end is going to come up, and I will help you. And I thank you in advance for this. We will do other things as we get going, but part of this is for really, there's a lot of you in this room. We really want to allow space for you to get to know each other, both as a personal, we're going to spend a lot of time together over the next year. So, any questions before we get going? If you do not want to participate, you do not have to, but I would like you to. And I mean also CARB Air District staff, residents, members of the public, everybody stand up and find a line. Woo! Let's see how this works. It's the icebreaker, if you forget, is up on the wall behind Heather. Heather, can you raise your hands? So it's up on the wall should you, freeze and not know what we're doing. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to say is let's move the line out here too. Okay. We'll do two lines over here.
I recognize that circle. Is that okay?
We don't have, let's just, we're going to, here. So, Ed, can you stand?
I'm an expert.
Okay. We'll just move it up here too. Okay. Sure. Okay, there's a lot of us. Okay, so we're gonna actually do 2 lines in because this is a lot of people in this space. So if you're already in the middle of the square, can you move to this side of the wall, here, over here? Down here. And then if you are not yet in the square, come on in and move
Come this way.
down here. Okay. And again, thank you in advance for humoring what also seems kind of silly. Okay. The question's over there. So again, the question, introduce yourself and then say, if you could instantly become an expert in something, what would it be? And we're going to give you some time. Thank you. So ready, go. So you're going to go one that way. And Hannah, you're going to come up here? Okay. Everybody moves. So if you are facing the food, you're going to take one step to your right if you're facing the food. If you are not facing the food, you stay put. I know, right?
I don't know if I want to. I had to leave because I can't hear.
I know. I apologize.
No.
We should be in the picture. Okay. Okay, let me do the move.
So if I join the crowd, what do I ask?
If you could instantly become an expert on something, what would it be?
Oh, IT.
Okay.
Mine is very bad.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna. It always takes 30 minutes to get it. When John is down.
Seems like nobody's paying attention.
Nobody's winning. Alright, ready? Shift, move. We'll shift. John. Shift.
down here. And,
Oh, I know. Translator got ya.
oh, that's okay. Cool.
Okay.
That's cool.
Anything I need to know to help you ignore?
Well, he's hopped in, so someone's going to be coming down
Right
here.
Okay. With a.
Talk to about the air conditioning. He asked me if I could turn the air conditioning on.
We're gonna shut it down. Okay. We are going to be done. Okay. Thank you so much. I know this is a little bit chaotic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Round of applause. Okay. Go ahead and take your seats. Find your seats. Thank you. Thank you so much for participating. I hope some of you met somebody you had never met before. Maybe learned something interesting about this person. Thank you so much. Okay, and I apologize for those of you who may have thought that was very loud, because yes, that got kind of loud. But yeah, go ahead and take your seats. Thank you so much. As we design these meetings, we will look for other opportunities for interactive stuff for you guys to all get to know each other a little bit better as we go. And if anybody has any suggestions, please let me know. Okay. Once we are all in our seats, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica and Jamie to talk about the project boundary.
We are turning on the PowerPoint as Mr. Ed is last to leave the circle of fun.
Check, check. Oh, this works too. This is lovely. We can both be.
So
I'm just going to do a little bit of...
while we're setting this up, I just would be remiss. We want to thank Dylan, if he's still here. Give a shout out to Dylan. First of all, just for being awesome, but I believe the food was his suggestion. So if you enjoyed the food, was that right? Yes. So shout out to Dylan. We're going to rotate. So if you have a favorite restaurant, we may end up getting food from that place at some point. We want it kind of localish. Local small business is what we like.
Awesome. I
All
think
right.
we're ready to go.
So my name is Jamie Holt. I work for the district, and you are?
I am Jessica Olson. I also work for the Air District. So some of you might remember me from who was at the January kickoff meeting? Can I see a show of hands? Yes. Awesome. This is amazing. Obviously it worked. You guys, you felt like you wanted to be part of the process, and we're so glad you're here. So just a little bit of a background, and while I'm doing that, I believe the third page of your packet is the map I'm showing behind me. It is much easier to see in your packet than on the little screen behind me. So just briefly, because I know for a lot of you this is going to be a little bit of repetition, and I know Scott is going to get in a little bit more details later when we do a little bit of background on AB 617. But a little briefly, in September of last year, so only a few months ago, the district worked with the public and a lot of members in this community to nominate Stockton to be a part of this AB 617 process. And through that nomination, we adopted that through our governing board, sent that nomination to CARB, which is the California Air Resources Board, sort of the state board ahead of AB 617. And in that process, this green outline you see on the map was the official selection boundary for the AB 617 community of what was termed at the time Southwest Stockton. At the January 22nd meeting, which is the meeting that I met most of you at, the kickoff meeting, we let you know that we had heard really the past several months that there were a couple of communities really closely adjacent to that original selection by CARB that we felt like as a community needed to be included in this boundary for a couple of reasons. And so as you can see here, we have this boundary that's in green. There are sort of three sections that are in blue. There's one kind of at the bottom or south end of the map that you guys might call Conway Homes if you're familiar with the area. There's one in the top that's sort of the downtown area. And then there's one to the right or the east side of the map that's sort of Sierra Vista Homes area and a little bit beyond. So what we're here to talk about today, and really Crystal is going to help facilitate this, is because there are people who have, and we were so glad to have you at the last meeting, who showed a lot of interest in being on the committee. There are, once we establish officially the boundary, and we're kind of hoping that everyone maybe agrees with a lot of what the residents and community members were saying, then we can officially let you know who is on the committee. And a preview of that is everyone that has a nameplate will be on the committee if we accept sort of as a community that this should be the project boundary.
And to piggyback on that, we by no means, and I say we as in the district, some of our advocate partners, the partners at CARB, some of the public members that have already participated, we know that this is not the only area of need. And I will tell you, we know it's not the only area of need in the valley. We are working with other communities in the valley that aren't official CARB designated AB 617 communities. We just have to find a balancing act between those communities that kind of make sense because they're adjacent and the ground truthing by those folks who are here in Stockton, that they've kind of said, hey, it makes sense to add these communities. But we know that we could have this process going on for months of kind of putting together, you know, neighborhoods here and neighborhoods there. But we want you to know that we, as a group of those people I mentioned, are committed to working with those other communities, wherever they might be in the valley, to do some of the stuff that is a part of AB 617, but we do have to, per the legislation, have a boundary. So that's kind of why we have to kind of put a line around things. So
really quickly, is there anyone who doesn't have this map? Raise your hand and Crystal will go ahead and give you a packet. Great, thank you.
So it is a little weird too, because we're kind of having a discussion about it before we have like an actual committee. And this has been a challenge throughout the process with AB 617 because it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg because we're not exactly certain where the boundary will be until we hear from the committee, but we can't have an official committee until we know what the boundary is. So as we move forward with the meeting, there is a discussion about a charter and kind of how the meetings will run and, you know, voting and all of that. But we're hoping that Crystal's going to kind of lead you through a little bit of a discussion to kind of maybe, hopefully, iron out some of this so that we can then say, congratulations, we have a committee, and then kind of move forward with some of those other things. Another question that has come up is, will we continue to allow people to apply to be on the committee if they're in one of these areas? And the answer to that is yes. If you know someone that lives in kind of one of these like little add-on areas, we'd love for them to participate. Residents, we are prioritizing residents, and we want residents to participate. And so probably for the next month or so, if you have folks that you think would be valuable and or enjoy this process, assuming that we kind of get on the same page of the boundary, that we're on board with doing that. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris.
Okay, sorry, I've been running around. Okay, so do we have any initial reactions to this boundary? Any thoughts? Barbara?
I think we have two major concerns, I think, that absolutely mean that Conway homes in that area have to be added in. First off, the proposed construction for the tunnel, if that project comes to pass, means that there will be about additional 500 trucks a day on the road in and out of areas near the port and to the Iron Triangle to all the railroads. So we are looking at significant increases in air pollution from truck traffic and also from batch plant concrete construction, which will have impact on that area around Conway homes. The second area is we have learned from Region 5 of the Central, from the water boards, that the toxicity from the cyanobacteria that is in the harmful algal blooms around the area, it's not just that it's bacteria droplets that become airborne, it is an air quality hazard, and it needs its own monitoring systems. The HABs are getting worse every year, and we expect that, depending on decisions made with flows and with the tunnel, that they will actually worsen over time with climate change.
Okay. So the Conway homes, I know, is in the proposed expansion with those blooms. And the second part, is that, do you feel like a monitor within the expanded project boundary, the proposed boundary, would gather information for that?
I think it would be really important. Plus, the part I'm not telling you is those areas are surrounded by sloughs. So all these areas that are suffering from the greatest air pollution are surrounded by the HABs. So.
Thanks, Barbara.
Harmful algal bloom. So it's the cyanobacteria that they identified in Florida, and they've had to do a lot of air quality monitoring there around that.
Self included, because I will be the worst, to assume that we're all like me when it comes to water, air, whatever, and I know nothing about the water issues. So stop me when I do that.
Yeah, so if there's a term, an acronym, or even a concept that you don't understand, don't be silent. Please raise your hand, ask the speaker to re-explain whatever that part is. Thank you, Barbara, for modeling that. I'm going to go to Douglas, but I just want to make one note. Hannah, can you raise your hand? This is my colleague and co-facilitator, Hannah. So she's taking notes. So we are going to produce like a meeting recap summary at the end of each of these meetings. And we are also recording it, which is the gentleman in the back. Hello. So all your comments are being captured somewhere. So when you say things and I don't write them down, I am not ignoring you. I'm going to go to Douglas.
Hello, everyone. I'm looking at the map where the green line hit, and you know that in the middle of the thing is an industrial area. And between the map, the green line down, like going toward the western ranch, I think it's been neglected because it's part needed because the community of children and people that live there between the industrial area as well up to point? Okay, right.
Let's point. I don't know.
Where is the, how you do this?
You push
right here.
Right.
Show me.
The red button.
The red button? Okay. Right here is an industrial, right there is an industrial area right here. I live on right in that area where I can see right there, right between the water, where the water, the delta. And down the bottom is where the truck goes from Charterway to the back. And then I think right here, it's been neglected, where the community is left right there, where children and elderly are there. There's not much residents in the back, more greening on it. So I just have to move that down a little bit. And over there and on the other side, it's mostly industrial area as well. So it's not going to really be an effective area in that area. So I just think that Western Ranch should be, the boundary should be more down more a little bit, and that will help the quality.
Thank you, Douglas. Okay, so what I hear you saying is you support expanding the boundary down, let's also point down in here, definitely. Okay. To then, Leonard? East, again, I apologize, I'm going to not know things, so thank you.
Well, yeah, I agree also that that blue line is definitely a place to. Okay, yeah, right there is Houston Avenue. And on the other side of Houston, where that whole Houston Avenue on both sides, there's a community center on Houston Avenue. There's a school right in here. There's a fire department over here. There's a lot of things in here that we need your help. And over here, it's been neglected for a long time. I think it needs some help over here also. So I think that's you're doing great if you approve it.
Thanks, Leonard. Okay, so again, that's another, we're not going to officially vote because we don't officially have a project boundary, but I'm hearing a lot of support for the expanded boundary. Does anybody else want to weigh in some thoughts on the CARB initial boundary, the expanded boundary? Any? Willie?
Yeah, I just have a question. Where are we at with the 51% of residents that are part of the steering committee? And I guess I'm just wondering that question because this would impact if we are not reaching that 51% threshold.
I love when people know the details. I'm going to hand it to Heather.
With the district. We are doing great. We've got plenty of residents in our balance. Excuse me, so sorry. My name is Heather Hanks. I'm with the Valley Air District. I'm with the lovely ladies at the front and helped process all the applications we received. And we definitely are 51+% residents currently.
Yeah, and to get to Willie's point, if you didn't know, this is a community-led steering committee, which means in the blueprint, which Scott from CARB explained, we need 51% of this group to be residents. So it's a very important point. Thank you for bringing it up. Regina, I see you making motions. Okay, Diamond.
Hi, my name is Diamond. I was wondering, the boundary at the top by Harding Way, okay, is it able to reach that far? No. Well, the blue line up by Harding Way, is that the final, like, pushed boundary? Does it go up, would it go possibly up any further? Okay.
Jess?
For now. Are you're asking if this most northern part, the what I just touched up there? This was based on a lot of the feedback we got. That's how we came up with this. I will also say we did some analysis just for a little bit more background, actually. AB 617 is intended to bring focused resources to communities that are identified as disadvantaged, and one of those criteria that we use is a state tool. It's called CalEnviroscreen. You might hear about it a lot more this year. And it kind of sets a score. And so we tried, again, to sort of focus those resources on the areas that scored highest. And I will say on the other side of Harding Way, it scored a little bit lower. That doesn't mean a no, but I will just say that's sort of how that area was defined a little bit.
Score basically means they're experiencing a higher pollution burden.
Correct.
Just like higher number is not so awesome.
Right. Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm not seeing a lot of other thoughts. Are we comfortable? Oh, hold on.
I just want to say that Conway Homes should definitely be part of the boundaries. It's part of Southwest Stockton.
Thank you. Anthony, any other thoughts? Okay, I'm going to go, see if you don't have a name 10, I don't know. Taylor.
Yeah, so we've heard a lot of advocacy for Conway Homes, and I'm going to further advocate for Conway Homes for sure. I'm looking at CalEnviroscreen right now, actually, and in addition to just the pollution burden score, which is somewhere ranging from, depending on the tract, 75% to 100% pollution burden, there's also 30% of the people living in those tracts is either under age 10 or over the age of 65. So I think that's just worth noting that the folks who are living there are extra susceptible to air pollution.
So I'm, excuse me, I'm Margot Prouse. I do live in the boundaries, and it sounds like everybody's on board with wanting the expanded boundaries. And I know we can't vote tonight, but will the committee just kind of take that into account and just like move on from that? Okay.
No, I'm going to use the very unofficial power I have to say yes. I think we're going to go with the expanded boundaries. So thank you and congratulations.
So with that, I want to congratulate those of you who have a name tag. You now have been officially appointed to the Southwest Stockton AB 617 Steering Committee. Yes, give yourself a round of applause. We do recommend that if you don't already have an alternate, that you find an alternate. If you have, it serves two purposes. One, if you can't be here, they can come and get the information. Also, it helps us communicate with the community more of what's going on, which we're going to be actively trying to do a lot of. The second thing is, as I mentioned before, if you know folks that you think would like to be on the committee, let us know. We are still taking applications for about the next month or so. We haven't like dropped the window on the applications yet, because we do think, especially in these neighborhoods where we just added the boundary, just expanded the boundary, that if we can get more residents from those areas, that would be fantastic. I know some of them are already represented in the room, but if we can get more, that would be great. And Heather even has something she's bringing up. We have applications for alternates. I'm just going to ask Heather to pass them out. You can take them back and give them to whoever you think might be good.
What are the requirements to be a community member?
That is an excellent transition to our next segment. It's almost like you're thinking with me. Okay, Dylan? One more comment from Dylan. I also want to note that if you are not a formal community steering committee member and you are sitting maybe not at the table, that doesn't mean you won't still be participating. We will be very inclusive in these meetings, have lots of exercises where you get to participate to the fullest degree possible. It just means that you, when we do vote for things, you wouldn't necessarily be voting. But Dylan?
Dylan Zelvo with Little Manila Rising, and proud to be a part of the organizing committee, I guess that's what we're called. I wanted to reiterate something we said on the phone as we were preparing for this meeting, that now that we've increased the boundaries and specifically expanded it to Sierra Vista and Southeast Stockton, that we would just name it maybe the South Stockton or the Stockton boundary.
We love that idea, and as long as I believe, it seems like a lot of people agree that it's no longer Southwest, so I think that's a great idea. It'll be the Stockton AB 617 community.
Yay. Okay, Douglas.
I need some clarification regarding what you guys say. I'm in agreement, but are you going to move that green thing down to Western Ranch, the District 6?
I'm going
Conway?
to Vanna White it one more time.
Uh-oh.
So all of the blue is now going to be all the green. So where it's the green including now the blue areas.
Got it. All right,
three
thank
blue
you.
areas, yeah.
Okay, so to get to Jay's question and to transition nicely to Jonathan's next piece, what does it mean to be a community steering committee member? What is required of you? What did you just sign up for? Jonathan's going to lead us through an exercise. In your packets, you have something that's like a draft charter. If you don't have one, raise your hand, and I or someone else are going to run around and get you one. It looks...
Yeah.
It says Southwest Stockton Community Steering Committee Charter. And to Dylan's point, it'll get revised, so it'll just say Stockton. But again, raise your hand if you don't have one, and I'm going to hand it over to Jonathan. Just move around.
Am I on? All right, I'm on. Okay. People feeling good? People understand? Well, I know Valley Air District feels good. All right, you feel good now after that. Okay, so this is the charter. This is pretty much the official piece to really allow people to really understand what the whole part of this, the process, what it's supposed to be about, what's the ins and outs, what's expected with you guys, what's expected from us, and it's pretty much as a way to, if you guys have any questions, we'd be able to refer back to this sort of piece, okay? I helped build a little bit of this thing, so if there's any problem, blame me. I'm probably the reason for it. Right now, we have the committee objectives. Do I have to go through all of them? Okay. So with the committee objectives, let's see, is it special committee? I mean, you guys can pretty much read that. But the idea is for this whole process, it's pretty much going to go all the way probably to December, however we're going to do. We're going to be creating an air monitoring plan, which is pretty much a way to lay out where the air monitors are going to be put at in the boundary zone, but also a CERP, which is a Community Emissions Reduction Program. I'm also going to advise or let you guys know, disclaimer, there's going to be a lot of acronyms in this thing. So if you guys have any questions or need clarification about something, please raise your hand. I'd be willing to address those things. So yes, so this whole process is to come up with the air monitoring plan, but also the Community Emissions Reduction Program. So that's the Community Emissions Reduction Plan program is pretty much a set of measures that the Valley Air District will be able to go through for this boundary zone, which it can include different types of projects. But that's what the idea is, to really get us to talk about what projects would we want to see in our communities. Would we want to see more emphasis on safe routes, or we want more emphasis on electric vehicles or charging stations? We want more emphasis on tune-in, tune-up events. We just found out recently at the tune-in, tune-up, when they had to do exchange of the cars, they had a huge crowd. They had 75 people come to a pizza place to want to exchange their cars to get the rebates for them to get a new car or a decent new car. 75 is pretty crazy, because typically there's about 7, 8 over in these cities, and Stockton had like 75. It was crazy. So I'm saying the need is there. What do you guys want? Like, what can we do? What does the community want to be able to get in this boundary zone? And that's what the CERP is about. We have the objectives, which is definitely including identifying the areas which we did of concern. Also include decimating and soliciting information to and from community stakeholders. And then upon adoption of the CERP, the steering committee may continue to meet. So that means, even after December, there might be a chance, we know, that maybe you want some follow-ups. Maybe there's another thing to work on the implementation. So once money start coming in, the projects start going through, people may want to still follow up, be like, hey, what's going on with this? Well, maybe we'll do a committee even after this process, of a planning process, just so you guys can get engaged, understand this is what's happening, because we don't want we don't want people to not be a part of the thing if they want to still get information. That's the idea. So with the roles and responsibilities, consist of community stakeholders, check. The majority of them, community residents, check. I made sure community residents. What we're also going to try to really focus on, push outreach for is, of course, Sierra Vista residents, and also we have Conway for sure, but we're also working on Boggs Track. Those are the areas right now that we really need to focus on. If you guys have friends, if you guys have any people in Sierra Vista area, that would be great. If you guys can invite them, let us know. Okay, let's see what else. See attachment A, which will be in last pages. To inform the role of advising the district in its development of the CERP, will be responsible for a variety of topics, which is community issues, which we'll be definitely discussing. Who has responsibility and authority to address those issues, propose strategies for the CERP, mechanisms for engaging with other agencies, that could be state, that could be local, health, right now it's not just including Valley Air District, but it's also public health. It's including also maybe other, let's say for example, clinics, for example, community medical center. all those things. Those are types of groups that we'd also include as part of the same, so they could be part of the conversation, and also they have the capacity. Mechanisms for other, approaches for additional community outreach, which we'll definitely do, and other topics of interest to the committee. Do you guys get that right now? Any questions right now? Yes.
Hello, my name is Gwendolyn.
Hi.
Hi. A couple of things. One, I would like to represent the Sierra Vista area.
Oh, great.
Because that's where I'm from. And currently our church is located adjacent right to it. We're in the Airport Way corridor.
Great.
So we're right there and been there for over 50 years. We've been in that area. So and have a lot of family in that area. Secondly, when you're talking about outreach, are you talking about when you're trying to collect people to represent community members from those areas? Have you thought about holding the committee meetings in those areas?
That's actually a good thing. So that's what this idea is, to really go to locations, different locations, to allow people to, first things first, go into a different area that they're probably not used to, location. So this community steering committee would go to locations they never knew about. So for example, for Sierra Vista, had no idea about. Having a meeting there would be definitely beneficial. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to hit different areas, different locations. So if you guys have any locations you guys know that hold a big space, we definitely would want to do that. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to hit different areas so it's closer for people, but it also gives a chance for people to experience different neighborhoods and locations. Thank you so much for being here, by the way.
Any other questions for Jonathan for this section? Also, you can propose edits. So at the end of this, we're going to ask you guys to take this home, or we'll probably send you a final version that will reflect the changes that are discussed here today, and then you sign it and bring it to the next meeting in April. So feel free to be very high level or very specific.
Hi, thank you. My name is Catherine, and I work with the Central Valley Air Quality Coalition, and I also teach at the Stanislaus campus of CSU, or the Stockton campus of CSU Stanislaus. So glad to see that blue area in Harding Way be added, both because it's an impacted area, but also because I think that campus could be a real asset. So I have two comments and questions along those lines. One is in the kind of section about roles and responsibilities, I see language like advising and discuss. And based on our coalition members' experiences in Fresno and Shafter last year, there's a little bit of lack of clarity around whether this steering committee has an official decision-making role or if it's actually just advising the air district and then the air district ultimately makes the decision. So some clarity there would be helpful. And also, since we didn't go around the room, I don't know if there are representatives from the city and the county here, but also in terms of understanding that a lot of these issues are going to be connected to land use, making sure that we get some of those decision makers to the table early on, I think will be really important.
Those are excellent points. I just want to note one thing about your name tags. So Catherine has a gray name tag, which means you are not correct me if I'm wrong, not a resident, you are like an advocate or an other. Okay. Albert has a green name tag, which means he's this other government, which you're talking about. You hope they're in the room. Thank you for being in the room. And if you have a blue name tag, then you are a resident. Some of you have many hats, but that's how you are currently designated. Okay. And you referenced the decision making. So we can jump ahead in the charter and talk about the voting. But one thing that I can say that's different with Stockton than what happened perhaps in Fresno in the past is the air district is starting out saying, here's the expanded boundary, and starting out saying, here's the voting in the charter. So we're not struggling. I think there's been a lot of learning from year 1 of 617 to now year 2. You guys are the new crop of year 2, and you're really benefiting from a lot of the experiences from the air district and CARB and the community saying, okay, how do we do this? I, as an aside, at the Institute for Local Government do a lot of public engagement training, and AB 617 is the most robust community-led process I've seen anywhere in California. This is so different and so exciting. So, but it's hard, and they've learned a lot of things. I'm going to go to Ed.
Thank you. One of the things, I was a South Central, am still a South Central Fresno committee member, and one of the points of confusion as they grew their community emissions reduction plan was the lack of understanding of the Blue Book. And I noticed that every single person has one of these. It's not a hard read, it's a sectional read, so you can take 4 or 5 pages at a time to understand it. But it clearly communicates that our role is advisory to the district, and that was, there was not that clarity in Fresno, so thank you.
Thank you. And again, Ed is on the Fresno Steering Committee, so he's a little ahead, and he can share some of these learning moments. But that is true. I'm wondering if there's anyone from the Air District or CARB who wants to touch on this decision-making question, or do we just cover it with Scott's presentation in a little bit?
I can speak a little bit more in my presentation.
Okay, Scott's going to cover it later, so preview. Any other thoughts? I want to give you enough space to move on to the later portions. Maybe give you a minute to look at the rest of the charter, and then we'll touch base to see if there's any other questions or concerns. Just to reiterate, we will send a revised version of this out after the meeting, and then you can bring your signed copy at the next meeting in April. Yeah, maybe, I'm sorry? For example, Dylan's point that we want to be called the Stockton Steering Committee Charter rather than Southwest because we've expanded the boundary. So one easy edit is to drop that. If there's other points that anyone has of needing something, I think Jonathan had something he wanted bolded, for example, to really call attention to something.
Mm-hmm.
Anything like that. You take the time, we can capture those thoughts here. You can also email your comments into the Air District, and then we will bring this revised charter, and this becomes sort of the agreement and the operating document, so we know what to expect of each other and what we're doing. So just take a minute.
Another thing that I wanted you guys to see, if you guys weren't able to view it yet, that's a little bit different than Schaffner and Fresno. Deliberation and consensus for the voting part of it. You know, right now because it's a huge group, we thought, it's always good to start with, see if there's consensus. If there's not some sort of consensus, then the idea is to then go into a voting roll. That way it saves time, but it also works to be more organized. So if you guys have any comments about that, let me know. But from hearing from West Oakland, Schaffner, and Fresno who did the process, they said pretty much consensus, and then voting would probably be a better option. And then also we added the co-leads. The idea, the difference, Fresno and Schaffner did not do co-leads. They didn't have that as part of their agreement, and the reason why is because we want to make sure that they understand with Valley Air District we're working as partners with them to be able to see, we be able to work with the agenda. And for Catholic Charities and the community-based organizations, like the ones that are really trying to, that are part of it because of the AB 617, the grant that we got, we're supposed to be working with this process with Little Manila and also EJCW. The work is supposed to be transparent. We're supposed to be allowing you guys to be the ones to pretty much decide what would be the agenda for next. Do you guys decide, yes, we would be able to talk about this. This is something we should probably talk about next time more often, or we need to focus on something because we don't understand it. Because that's really what it is. It's community-led. So I really want to make sure in this language, if it makes sense. If it doesn't, please let me know. But the idea is because we're co-leading, or they say co-hosting, but we're going to be switching off. So I won't be talking next time, thankfully. It'll be Dylan who'll be talking, or someone will be talking. And then we're hoping after a while, maybe we can start to include that. What if residents would want to be a part of co-hosting? If you guys would feel comfortable running this part, being able to get discussions going. I'm not sure if you guys would be wanting to do that, but I feel like because it's community-driven, it's community-led, that would be something to engage, to keep you guys engaged, to really, maybe you feel, hey, I want to be a part of this process, I want to be able to get the discussions going, maybe that'd be a good idea. Yes, no, maybe so.
So Jonathan's nodding to another potential edit to this, could be that we don't necessarily list who the co-lead organizations would be. We would just say what a co-lead is and then open it up to anybody who wants to do that extra step. Some overeager and open it up. So anybody could be a co-lead. And again, it would rotate. So not that we don't love Jonathan, but we would want to give this space and really that leadership role to anyone who's interested. So I see heads nodding. Anybody opposed to opening the co-lead up to any members of the steering committee? No opposition? Look at this. Oh, Douglas.
To clarify, what is the duty if the co-committee, how many, like in a week, what is the extent of it?
It will vary depending on kind of what's happening, but as Jonathan noted, the co-leads tend to help develop the agenda, and then they're usually up here with me. So it depends on the meeting and what we're doing that meeting, but I usually have the co-lead do part of a welcome, and most importantly, do something in the end to close, because this being a community-led process, I really don't want to have just the Air District and CARB talking at you. I want to have your voices up. So it's a way to get voices in the room. This is a very large group, so there won't be everybody talking at all times, but the co-lead is a way to really represent that interest.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mariah from Restore the Delta. I think that that is a really great idea. I think that it is a good way to encourage participation with everybody and make everything more transparent, as Jonathan was saying, and a little more even and balanced so that not all of the work has to go on everybody. I know that we would be interested in it because we're here as a community organization, so I think that's a great idea.
I'm seeing support for that modification to the charter. Okay. Any other thoughts about anything else that's in here? Any questions?
I'm just a little bit concerned about this dissemination of material. You know, must be approved by the co-leads prior to release. So if people want to communicate different issues that, you know, they're concerned with other members of the committee, it seems like it has to go through this vetting process by the co-leads before that information can be distributed. And so maybe there's something else that I'm not getting out of this that you could clarify?
So I was the one that actually added, because the reason I didn't really was trying to do my best to look at both sides of the table. With the way Oakland did it, West Oakland said there were times where they were worried people would start to open the floor for something randomly, putting up, say for example, they came in and brought something on the table that was random, that wasn't on the schedule. The reason why was because it unfortunately added time for the meetings and actually added 2 hours after discussing something. But in this case, I'm not sure if people would, in this sort of space, would have a discussion that'd be 2 hours or after or anything like that. So if there's ways we can edit it, I mean, I'd be totally up for it. But that, I just added that just because it allows at least the space to at least see what we can bring to the table and where we can include that as part of the agenda.
If I can suggest something, maybe we keep that there to suggest that people, as a sort of a courtesy, bring it through the co-leads and say should be or shall be, or make it sort of softer language. So it's not necessarily a requirement, but it's sort of acknowledged by the committee that it would be nice if ahead of time we got a lot of materials. Another reason that's great, and that we at the district take responsibility for a lot of the times, is if you have materials we want to share and there are Spanish speakers or other language speakers other than English who want to be a part of that, we have helped translate those materials, and so getting that ahead of time is helpful, but again, not 100% necessary. So if there's a way to maybe amend this to make it sound like it's a suggestion and maybe not, that way we still play it to Jonathan's point, but not make it so harsh.
Jonathan, I want to applaud you. Transparency is really important, and there's all kinds of different interests that are represented in this room, and we all have valid comments, and it's important that we build that trust, and transparency builds that trust. And I saw this in South Central Fresno. We had some of the coalitions sending in documentation the same day as the meeting, and it was very difficult for others to assimilate it, or even Spanish speakers to be a part of it. So I really do applaud that. Thank you, Jonathan.
And that's what I meant, is when you have coalitions that doing like a material that's all of a sudden it's on the floor, it kind of puts us at a tiffy, because then we're all of a sudden like, how are we going to explain this for people to be able to understand? Because unfortunately, when we looked at the agenda, we expected, oh, okay, we'd be able to explain more on this thing if people had questions for that. But if someone brought something to the table, like a big sheet, and then we weren't able to assess it beforehand, it'd be kind of hard for those Spanish speakers and those who don't know the material. So we would have to explain that for the material. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to piggyback what you were saying about transparency as well as accountability. I'm an advocate for the people with disability as well as the deaf community. I would like that to be accessible as like closed caption, or it could be an interpreter in a little small box, as we discussed about, because they're the one that is excluded outside and doesn't know. And many times when I invite them, they're kind of just concerned about it because there's no interpreter involved. You have to ask for it in order to get that accommodation come. But as far as having that particular automatic it on the web page, on the website or whatever, and have closed caption on, that'd be wonderful. But if you have an interpreter, that'd be even better. So out of transparency as well, and let people know it in the community, that also needs to be reached out to. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for your patience. I know we didn't anticipate that today, and I apologize. We will rectify that in future meetings. Any other thoughts about the charter? And again, you can mull this over, take it home, and email in your thoughts if you have any specific edits or concerns or questions. Okay, I'm seeing nothing else. Let's move forward. Okay, so our next, thank you, by the way. Also, this took a lot longer in year one. So this is a huge, I know that you guys are like, why is she making a big deal? This is a big deal. Like, this was a very big deal. The people that are alluding to, like, this took longer in the other year one communities, you guys we're getting there. We're getting there faster. Yes. So thank you.
Big thanks to Jonathan, who helped put it together.
Big thanks to Jonathan. Okay, so we are going to have Scott up next to talk about the blueprint, this lovely document that's in front of you from the California Air Resources Board.
Do I just need to page down? Perfect, thank you. So I'll try to get set up here.
Scott, do you want them to ask you questions while you go, or do you want them to hold their questions?
Well, so we have a lot of ground to cover in 20 to 25 minutes. So I would say maybe if you can, jot the questions down and we'll circle back. I don't want to hold up the meeting time frame here. And otherwise, I'll certainly be after the meeting here. You can ask me questions there. So we got a little bit of time here to cover the blueprint and some of the kind of basics of the AB 617 program. So I would like to, for the sake of time, just kind of go through my materials if you don't mind. If it's something pressing or you really feel it's relevant, please raise your hand and I certainly will stop. Yeah, that was asking questions. So, good evening. My name is Scott Wall. I'm with the California Air Resources Board, and I am what's called a community liaison for one of the AB 617 communities, now Stockton. I also am a liaison for Shafter, which is one of the first-year communities. So, first of all, congratulations on being selected as really only one of the 3 second-year communities. And secondly, really congratulations for the phenomenal progress tonight on the boundaries, the charter, and actually setting the committee. So it's lightning fast compared to year one. So it really has, you all truly, as Crystal said, have benefited from a lot of the learnings that all of us actually had as first year kind of folks implementing this brand new program. As a liaison, basically, real quickly, what that means is I really know a little tiny bit about a lot of things, but I'm no expert in any of them. So I really kind of like am the go-between, if you will, for all things related to the Air Resources Board. The Air Resources Board is the oversight agency of the AB 617 program. The district actually implements the program, so they're kind of the ones that you go to normally for most things, but as we start getting into things like monitoring and enforcement and incentives that are all kind of the Air Resources Board programs, those are the things that I can connect you into the right folks to talk with or make sure that they're here at the table as we need them to be as the program moves forward. So the main purpose of my presentation tonight, and there is you should have a packet in front of you with the slides that I'll be covering.
If you don't have a presentation packet, raise your hand and I'm going to run over and get some more. Or just... Gentleman in the back? Okay. Sorry, Scott.
I did something wrong here. Okay. Okay. So I'd like to start by just giving you a real kind of overview of who controls air pollution. What are the organizations that control air pollution? Because that's really kind of does influence some of the decisions and who you talk to with certain areas. And so there's several agencies that work together to control air pollution. On the left is the United States Environmental Protection Agency. And they basically set the standards for air quality nationwide. And then they regulate things like trains, ships, and planes. Then at the state level is the Air Resources Board, and that's my organization that I work for, the agency that I work for. And we regulate what are called mobile sources. And what we mean by mobile sources is basically things on the road with wheels that don't normally kind of like, like spend most of their time traveling within the state on the road. So we don't do ships, we don't do planes, we don't do trains. We do the cars, the trucks, and the buses. And then we also actually set fuel standards for the state of California as well. And then at the local district, there are 35 regional kind of districts, the San Joaquin being one of them, and they regulate what we call stationary sources. And by stationary sources, we mean like factories and refineries and the things that don't move, kind of like the structural kind of things that are within the area. And they also they regulate things like the residential sources like wood burning, wood stoves, things of that nature, and also what we call area-wide sources like regional sources like fugitive dust from unpaved roads or from agriculture. So there's kind of a few different ways of controlling air pollution with those three different agencies. A long history of policy decisions has created and worsened air pollution and other living conditions for disadvantaged low-income neighborhoods that tend to also be primarily communities of color. On a tour of Stockton I was fortunately able to go on a couple months ago now, one of our stops was actually at Little Manila Rising, and Dylan kind of gave us a little bit of a story of the Little Manila, the Filipino community, and kind of talked about how they were redlined or kind of excluded from land ownership, and then later kind of the crosstown freeway was built in the 70s, and that all but destroyed the community and then burdened the area with pollution from heavy-duty diesel trucks and buses. And so that's an example of kind of unfair kind of history of the disadvantaged communities. We also saw Washington Elementary and the houses near the port, I think that maybe is the Boggs Tract area, that were impacted by diesel trucks driving through and often idling nearby, as well as a variety of industrial and commercial businesses in and around the port. And so these examples in Stockton and the examples that you see on the slide here, kind of all the different little scenarios and vignettes, really are what we call cumulative exposure. So basically that means taking into account all the different causes of air pollution that impact a community. So in many communities, pollution sources are close to neighborhoods, schools, daycare centers, senior centers, and other places where people who are especially vulnerable to health impacts from air pollution spend their time. So how are we addressing cumulative exposure? Assembly Bill 617 aims to begin addressing these disparities by focusing on air pollution at the community level. So we talked a little bit earlier about the federal, the state, and kind of the regional level. This new program really does bring the concerns for the pollution down to the community level. And it's also about improving local air quality by partnering with community members. So the Air Resources Board established the Community Air Protection Program as an umbrella to implement and oversee the various components of AB 617. To benefit communities statewide, there are new actions like regulations to limit emissions and funding for cleaner technologies. AB 617 also calls for a suite of new databases and enhanced emissions reporting requirements to support the efforts at reducing pollution. In individual communities, community members such as here and what we're doing tonight and beginning the process tonight, community members in air districts are developing local action plans to measure exposure to air pollution with community air monitoring and to develop local action plans to find ways to reduce air pollution. These elements combined are designed to bring cleaner air to heavily impacted communities in California. So when it comes to implementing AB 617, we all have different responsibilities. CARB is responsible for new statewide strategies, so new regulations and other strategies that are statewide. We establish the program requirements and provide program oversight and issue community air grants, which are basically funding to support local community engagement and community-led air monitoring. The air districts partner with the communities on air monitoring plans and emission reduction programs and administer the incentive funding, and also develop new rules on industrial sources that fall within kind of their realm of air pollution controls. And then communities, of course, you truly are the core of this program. You provide direction on what your concerns are, how to structure programs to respond to your concerns, and partner with the districts on the emission reduction programs and the air monitoring programs. So what's the role of the steering committee? Well, the steering committee works with the air district to guide what goes into the plans and how the plans are implemented. Successful efforts are the result of a collaborative, community-driven process, and the steering committee is the key mechanism to ensure community participation and leadership. Steering committees drive discussions around issues and concerns and participate in making decisions on the plans. Just a couple final points about the steering committee. This graphic kind of shows the blueprint guidance on community steering committees, but one thing that you do is determine the final geographic boundaries, so you can all kind of like pat yourselves on the back and check mark already, one thing accomplished. And really the key point here is that the committee is to discuss all program elements as they are developed and that their perspectives are documented and reflected throughout. And so just to kind of, I guess, drive that point home a little bit as far as the question earlier about the role of the committee is really, according to the blueprint guidance document, is really about, discussing, sharing ideas, having a discussion among yourselves, and really helping to guide and steer the process, kind of consulting, advising the district on, because you know the area better than anybody else does. This is your home. And so that being said, really what the Air District then is really required to do, and has done a great job in the last year, is really just making sure that all those perspectives are captured and that they're reflected in the emission reduction program. So in front of you, hopefully everybody should have a blueprint. And this is the guidance document that the Air Resources Board created. And if you don't, please raise your hand. We've got a couple extra here that we can hand out. So this is basically, kind of, we've called this it's the blueprint because it really is the everything that we have created as the oversight agency and kind of the implementing agency, not implementing, the oversight agency for the program is contained in here. So last year we didn't actually do a very good job of letting folks know new to the committee really about the blueprint and what's here. And I only can show you where things are. We're not going to cover everything in here. My purpose is really just to let you know where things are at and the main things that I'd like to turn your attention to help you with the work ahead of you. So this basically covers the implementation of AB 617. There's a section here about community selection and statewide strategies, all the things that the Air Resources Board is doing to support AB 617. I'm not even going to touch on those tonight. There may be opportunities later on in the process to introduce those concepts to you. But really tonight, what I'm going to try to focus in on are the criteria for community air monitoring plans and the criteria for the community emission reduction programs. And we're only going to be able to see those from really a bird's eye view. So just kind of, again, introducing you where they're at. So the criteria for air monitoring, Appendix E, so just a quick orientation. The front part of this is just kind of like a narrative, if you will, not the real kind of bread and butter or meat and potatoes of the program. The appendices later on are really where kind of you get you get into kind of the guts of the program and kind of the nitty gritty of everything. So the Appendix E is in the blueprint is what contains the criteria for the community air monitoring plans, which are designed to measure air quality challenges to support action. And so the criteria include 14 required elements of a community air monitoring plan designed to identify 1, the reason for conducting community air monitoring, 2, pardon me? E7. Okay, E7. So the criteria, they include 14 required elements of a community air monitoring program. They're designed to identify the reason for conducting monitoring, how the monitoring will be conducted, and how the data will be used to take action in the community. Building on these 3 questions, which you see kind of repeated to the left here on this slide, the Air District will work with the steering committee through the 14 elements on the right, and the 14 elements that are in the blueprint are the ones on the right, to develop the monitoring plan. And Appendix E, starting on page E18, actually has a checklist that would be a very helpful tool for you to look at the air monitoring plan. And it really does walk you through the additional detail on the 14 elements of the air monitoring plan. So you might kind of wonder, well, what's the importance of these 14 elements? Well, the 14 elements provide a consistent process to help the Air Resources Board and the public understand how the monitoring was conducted and how the data can be used. And so if you kind of follow the flow of information on this slide, air districts and community groups collect that air monitoring data. Air districts and the communities may provide it on their own websites, but basically the air district reports that data to us, and then we actually publish that data on our statewide data portal. So anybody from the public can go out and see that air monitoring that's really all new air monitoring because of the AB 617 program. A few final words about the monitoring plans. The monitoring plans can be designed to support a variety of actions. So one of them would be informing personal choices, especially the real-time monitoring data that would be available out on the air quality portal. You think, do I want to go take a jog tonight, or should I run on the treadmill? Do I want to take the kids to the park this afternoon? So those are all kind of personal choice things that you may want to kind of choose differently based upon the current air quality in the area that you're at. Another thing that the air monitoring plans support is a better understanding of the sources impacting the community. So you can kind of get more of a read on what's really going on in this area based upon monitoring. And then they also help us to track progress of emission reduction programs. Obviously, if you're monitoring over a period of time and you're seeing kind of a desired decrease of air pollutants, that could support that the actions you've taken in the emission reduction program are working. And then also supporting enforcement activities for new regulations. And really, the point here is that the Community Steering Committee really does have a vital role in determining what kinds of actions the monitoring data should be designed to support. And I know that they'll be doing a great job helping you get involved in what kind of monitoring you'd like to see and where and all of that fun stuff. So that's something to come up. So now that we are talked a little bit, very high level about the monitoring, let's shift away from that, and we'll spend a few minutes discussing a bit more detail about the emissions reduction programs. Here's the process and timeline for developing a community emission reduction program. Now, there's been a little bit of discussion about the next year, and there's a reason for that because that's actually part of the legislation. Stockton was selected by the Air Resources Board in December of 2019, and the Air District has 1 year to work with the community to develop the emissions reduction program, which is then approved by the local air district, so San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, their board, and then once it gets approved by their board, then it's then forward to the Air Resources Board for our review and our board's action. So implementation is ongoing over a 5-year time frame. So this is not just a one and done type of a thing. It's kind of like 1 year to create it, 5 years to implement it, and then 5 years to look back. So it's really, this is a serious commitment of time and investment of energy. And so the 1 year kind of creation of it really only begins the action. And then there's also required annual reports that are required by the blueprint to track progress and to kind of report back to our board on status of implementation. So I want to take a minute to talk about who has authority to address exposure issues at the community scale, which is different than what I talked about earlier as far as who has air pollution kind of authority. This is really more about kind of talking about who has the right to address exposures in the community. So there are a lot of public agencies that make decisions that influence emissions and exposure, and our strategies need to consider the authorities that different agencies have. Because we're focused on all the sources in a community, we need to consider a wide set of strategies to reduce exposure. This includes traditional air quality reductions, as well as other strategies to reduce emissions and exposure, like land use strategies, transportation planning, and other strategies that really involve cities, counties, and other state agencies like DPR, Department of Pesticide Regulation, and oil and gas. So there's really, when you start creating these plans, it becomes this kind of very large collaborative effort with not just the 3 air kind of agencies, but really with many, many other agencies as well. So we are thrilled that we have some government reps here on this committee as well, because they are a vital part of the process for us. So first and foremost, community emission reduction programs are designed to improve local air quality. Appendix C in the blueprint is where we have all of the requirements for these programs. So when you're talking about doing the community emission reduction program, Appendix C is really what gets into kind of, again, the nitty-gritty of the program. And if you look at page C41, toward the end of the appendix, this is the checklist for the community emissions reduction program that we use at CARB to evaluate that a program meets the criteria set out by the blueprint. So combined, these requirements cover community partnerships and public engagement, understanding the local air pollution challenges, identifying solutions, and then tracking progress over time. Once the air pollution challenges are of greatest concern are understood, the next step is to identify goals, targets, and strategies. So I want to kind of just real briefly define what those are and how they're different from each other. These pieces are at the heart of the program and work together to help define what success means and how we're going to get there. Let's start with goals. A goal basically defines what change we want to see in our community, and the blueprint lays out several different types of goals that an emission reduction program should include. So goals could include focusing on specific sources that create pollution, like cleaning up a particular heavily polluting industry or electrifying heavy-duty trucks. Could be about increasing compliance with air quality rules and regulations, or a goal could also be about reducing impacts at places where people live, work, and play that are located near sources air pollution, such as installing air filtration at schools, would be an example of reducing impacts. So school might be near sources of pollution. Installing air filtration doesn't reduce pollution, but it does reduce the impacts of the pollution on the children in the school. So strategies are the specific actions we'll take to achieve the goals and targets, and we'll discuss this in a bit more on the next slide. And then finally, targets are basically the quantified results of our actions. So air pollution will be reduced by X amount based upon these actions that we're taking. So those are the targets, really kind of how much are we expecting air pollution to decrease based upon the actions that we're taking that we've defined here. And again, so to focus on near-term action, goals and targets are set to be achieved within 5 years. And I promise I'm getting to the end. So let's talk real briefly the 6 strategy types. The Air District must work with the steering committee to look at potential strategies from these 6 categories. Rules, which establish emissions limits or other mandatory requirements for sources within the community. Facility-specific risk reduction to reduce health risk from individual facilities that impact the community. Air quality permitting to ensure the cleanest technologies for new or modified sources. Incentives for cleaner technologies, enforcement of air quality rules and other policies, and land use, transportation, and mitigation measures to reduce impacts, some of which fall under the city, county, public health agency, or the other government agencies that we talked about a little bit earlier. So the main idea here is to ask which new rules, incentive programs, transportation strategies, and on would benefit the community based upon the community-specific air quality challenges. To wrap up my time with you this evening, I'd like to just quickly point out a few additional places you can go for more information, tools, and training. The CARB Online Resource Center provides community members access to tools and resources such as monitoring data and information on emission reduction strategies. We're continuously updating materials on the Resource Center, so if you don't see something out there that you'd like, please let me know, and we will, always updating and adding information. We'd be thrilled to continue to grow that. There is also, I put, with the copies of the blueprint, I put a little postcard. These are new online trainings that we have recorded and put together. Yes, thank you, Jamie. Basically, this online training is 8 different modules, 5 to 9 minutes each, so they're pretty easy to get through, all totaling less than an hour of time, and they cover everything from a little bit more detail in the Community Air Protection Program, the Blueprint, Community Steering Committee, so a little bit more about your role, and then there's also 5 different modules that drill a little bit more into detail about the community emission reduction programs. And then finally, if you'd like to kind of just have information come to you about the Community Air Protection Program, I would encourage you to sign up for what we call our listserv, which is basically just you give us our email address, and we will, anytime there's new information to share with you about the Community Air Protection Program, we'll just automatically blast that out to you, a little bit like the district does for the information on the steering committees and the AB 617 program. So we actually have something similar to that as well. And with that does wrap up my presentation. How did I do on time?
You are almost, yes, exact. So
Okay.
Thank you, Scott. And also thank you especially for getting this early in the process. This is excellent. We only have a few more minutes for this section, so what I'm going to say is if you have any burning questions for Scott, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll come to you. But know that he will be here throughout the whole process, and this blueprint, which is really the backbone, will be discussed as we go on. So, and he can also stay after the meeting, so you can talk to him then as well. So any burning questions for Scott before we move into the next wrap-up, next steps?
I was just going to quickly say that, yes, I am here every meeting. I am assigned, you're going to have to live with me, whether you like it or not. I am assigned here. This is part of, this is part of my regular assignment, and so I'm here every meeting, so please feel free to reach out to me, even if it's offline. You have my email address and phone number on that last slide, so feel free to reach out if there's anything I can help you with. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Okay, thank you, Scott. Okay, there are a few last-minute housekeeping things. So scheduling for ongoing meetings. At the first kickoff open house that we had before this was actually a thing, we asked people to give us feedback on which days of the week would be best to have these meetings. And we got a general agreement from the folks that were there that like Mondays and Tuesdays were best. And after further discussion, we sort of settled, but we want to see how you guys feel around the first Tuesday of the month in the evening like this to allow people who work other jobs, because this is not your job, to attend their jobs and then be here. Any strong concerns, not like I can't make that one meeting, but any strong concerns about the first Tuesday of the month, or are we in agreement? And again, sorry, if you can't make every meeting, that's okay because this is life. That's where the alternates come in. But yes, thank you. We'll go Douglas and then Mary.
Yes, is this going to be every month of the first Tuesday of the month? And also, and if I cannot be it, and I can send in this, what do you call it, a proxer or whatever, that, if I can make it to whatever the information?
So yes, it is every month. This is very exciting. So it is every month. You can designate an alternate because it is a lot. But we do strongly encourage, I will strongly encourage participation just because there's a lot that goes on. And if you miss a couple meetings and you come back, you'll miss the discussion and then you'll be like, wait, we never talked about that, but you know. So because of this 1 year timeline, it's a marathon of a pace. That's why we feed you. But okay, I'm gonna go to Mary.
Well, I won't be here after December, or after September, because I work on Tuesday and Thursday nights, in addition to my regular job and everything else I do.
Okay, so after September. Could you have an alternate? Okay, so probably.
I will just to add on
Please.
to that too. If you do have an alternate and you aren't able to make it, but you of course have been a part of the process and want to keep watching, we record, as was mentioned earlier, every meeting. We post every single recording, and they're also. Are we streaming live? We
I
are
think so.
streaming live. So if you, yeah, it cuts in and out, but hopefully that also gives you on Facebook.
Yes.
And we'll send that link out to the committee. That also gives you a chance, if you can't make it, but you can sneak away and watch a little bit of Facebook video, then you can sort of see in real time what's actually happening.
And we're a resource for you. If you can't make meetings, you can call me, anyone at the Air District, any of our community co-lead folks, to be there. And we also should tell you, all of the agendas and meeting summaries and the maps and all those things will be on the Air District's website. When you go on to their main page and you see the 617 link to the communities, there's already a Stockton page.
The
So you
URL at the
this.
bottom of your agenda is
Yes.
the resource for you.
So other materials are there. Okay, so I'm gonna, no? Oh, so if you move in my eye vision, I'm gonna think you're talking. Tuesday.
So that's a question for people who are available on Wednesdays because we're here. Also, there's a bunch of steering committee people who are not here today. Is there a way we could do this electronically and maybe get a poll to get the perspective of everyone?
There is. This meeting was moved because of the election last night, to take that into account, but I think we could poll. I'm looking at the Air District to see how we want to handle that.
Yes, we tried to do a poll like that at the kickoff. Just if we do a poll, you've got to respond.
Yeah. No. And with a poll, it would be majority vote. Yeah. So, yeah, Tuesday or Wednesday. And it would be the same. So it would be, the idea is that it's the same Tuesday or Wednesday of whatever, the first week of the month, every month. And it's every month. So.
Do you have the majority tonight?
We do have a majority tonight. We could also vote tonight. This is your steering committee. But I do want to respect, there's the question about, I want to go back to Willie. How do you guys feel about voting tonight versus waiting? Any strong oppositions, Willie, from voting tonight to see Tuesday or Wednesday? Or if we don't have a strong agreement, we can then just automatically doodle? The total committee number, Heather, is 43 currently. We're missing 14. So we have a majority, we have a quorum. So we could vote to Gwendolyn's point.
Yeah, because Okay. My point is, looking at all of this stuff, we have a lot of work to do. And then the more time and the more opportunities or chances you get, then it's just going to keep going. So you have a quorum, you have the majority, take a vote. That'll be our first vote. So take a vote, see how it works, and then it's flexible. You can go down the line. Because if you do it then, we meet only once a month. And if you wait, in this time you got to gather up, collect up, send out to do the poll, wait, add it up. It's going to be like 2 more weeks or so. Then you're going to miss it again. Then you got to notify.
How many of those 14 are residents and not organizational people?
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out that I think it's important that I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, but Tuesdays are also like city council nights, and so it also means that folks here wouldn't be able to get involved. They're also school district nights as well. So I mean, I would advocate for first Wednesday.
City council is twice a month, is that correct? Correct. So it's not the first Tuesday. It rotates. That's fun. Okay. I'm going to go to Douglas, but I'm hearing that we don't have an agreement on this, so let's go ahead and send out a doodle, but it's going to be a quick turnaround. So when you get the doodle email, you will have... Okay. Well, we don't have to do Robert's rules, so let's go ahead. I'm hearing strong concerns about Tuesday, Wednesday. Do you guys want to vote? Okay, Jonathan. Go ahead.
We found out from Fugazi that we only have one city council meeting that's in
October, the first
That would-
Tuesday in October. Otherwise, all the meetings are more on the second Tuesday, not the first Tuesday. So I just wanted to put that out there, at least for the city of Stockton. I can look up Stockton Unified though.
I feel like, okay.
I just want to kind of remind people that we really want, this needs to be really driven by residents. And I am concerned that there's only 9 residents here, and that when we...
No, I meant
9 missing.
Oh, 9 gosh, that makes me feel, never mind.
Yeah, there's 9 missing. There's 12 here today. Jonathan, you had a point.
That was it.
Okay. I'm going to go to Maria.
I mean, if we actually just go by hands, whoever wants to do it Tuesday, because I know the Stockton School District for Stockton Unified, we do it the 2nd and the 4th Tuesday of the month. Sometimes we have special board meetings and also ad hoc subcommittees, but it's in the evening. This works for me, representing Stockton Unified, because some other schools that I represent are actually on the map. So Wednesdays work for me, so we can actually take a vote.
So I'm hearing Maria say that the school issue, because we're talking the first week of the month, so we don't hit the school districts. Councilmember Fugazi is saying we only 1 or 2 with council districts. So now I'm feeling like there's more around to do a quick vote. No? Let's do a quick vote and see how that goes.
Well, except there's one question. For the groups that have worked to turn people out for this event, you know your people. Can they be here Tuesday, or can they be here Wednesday, or do you need to go back to them so you have good representative residents?
It's a fair point. So we heard that there might be a conflict with schools and council meetings, but I think now that's okay. We were trying to avoid churches. Is Wednesday a big church day? Bible study. That's what we were trying to avoid with the Monday, Tuesday original, and that's how we landed more on Tuesday, so we wouldn't conflict with church nights. So let's just vote. You guys have the voting power. Let's exercise it. It's voting week. So we're talking about the first week of the month. Steering committee members who could attend, and keep your hands up for a second so we can count you, who could attend Tuesdays. Raise your hand. When?
We need steering committee members.
Yeah, steering committee members. So if you're an actual member. Okay. $18? Okay. Steering committee members, that can do the first Wednesday of the month. I see 20. 19.
Hold on, raise your hands again, we've got different counts.
Sorry.
Sorry.
If you can do either, raise your hand for both. That's great.
You can vote twice.
You can vote twice. We just want to see, we want to make sure that we get the date that works best for the greatest number of people. This is Wednesday. This is the Wednesday vote. I know, right?
Oh, we're gonna do it again. Sorry, because I got thrown off by this Tuesday or Wednesday.
Okay.
This is Wednesday.
Wednesday. Raise your hand for Wednesday.
Raise them high, 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 high.
I wish we could do both days. Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Yes, 25. 25 for Wednesday. We're going to recount Tuesday. Raise your hand for Tuesday and leave them up if you can do Tuesdays. First week. Perfect. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I got 22. 25 versus 22? Yes. So Wednesday. Okay. If this becomes like a cataclysmic problem, we can talk about this moving forward. But thank you again. Okay, but we're not done. We're not done. So that is moving forward into our charter and our agreement. We're going to schedule the first Wednesday of the month, always in the evening. We have a question.
Is there a way we can pass out hard copies of the application to residents? And what can we tell residents who don't have a car?
We can pass out hard copies of applications. I believe Heather has a stack over here to grab her. Who don't have a car, I don't know if there's any transportation the district has for this. I think it's... Yeah, we could, I would say, you guys are going to get to know each other pretty well. If you're from a neighbor, like if there's a person who can't drive but wants to be on the committee and they know someone else from that neighborhood, we would encourage carpooling, I think is the best I can do. Okay, next. We would like to schedule a community tour, but we're not going to do it right now. So just heads up that we are going to send out a doodle poll for that. It will be on a Saturday. It will have Air District staff, it'll have CARB staff, and it'll have as many as you who wants to participate. Now that we have an official project boundary, we want to go around and actually see all the different communities within this project. And maybe there'll be places you've never been to. Learn, we, the royal we, want to learn. So also look out for that doodle poll. That'll again be on a Saturday. Okay, I swear we're almost done. Last thing, there's a lot of you. And we want you all to know each other very well. So we have one more favor to ask. As you were leaving today, if you don't mind, thank you in advance, pick up your nameplate, go out these back doors. There's a couple areas there, and we're going to ask your forgiveness for this. But if you could stand with your nameplate facing forward, we're going to do some really quick pictures. Oh, we're going to do it here. I lie. It's right here. We're going to have you do it right here. Some really quick pictures. If you are a steering committee member, here's the thing, because then we can come up, I know, this is why I said thanks in advance. Nobody's going to want to do this. Here's the thing, though. These pictures with your name can be distributed in a roster, and then we can all get to know each other faster. And we will all know this is Willie, this is what Willie looks like. Okay, so again, thank you in advance for your time. That'll be the last thing you do today. So what I will say is look for emails from us or the Air District with the final revised charter, the doodle for the community events, the community tour, and the agenda for the next meeting.
Are we keeping the
We do keep the nameplate, so after you take your beautiful shots, put your nameplate back on the table. Any questions? No, we're not done. Wait. Oh God, meeting sift.
This is the most fun part.
Yes. Okay, before we're gonna do online polling first, and then we're gonna take a picture. So what I would like all of you to pull out your cell phones, everyone. And if you don't have a cell phone or you're out of your data plan, like I used all mine, I can't use my data anymore, raise your hand and we'll give you a cell phone. We would like everyone to participate. Members of the public, you're welcome to participate as well. Anyone need a phone? You're gonna you're gonna open your web browser and you're gonna type sift.ly. That's the only 6 letters you're gonna type. Don't type anything else. Do you need a phone? Okay. Yes. So you're gonna open your browser. You're gonna type sift.ly. Barbara, you're in? Oh, I'll give you mine, okay? We want everyone to participate. And then you're gonna enter the participant code and you're gonna wait for me to start the poll. Because right now, I'm waiting for you guys to get on the website. Okay, Barbara, you're just gonna wait for me. Once you type the code, you're just gonna sit there tight for a couple seconds and wait for me to start the poll. Raise your hand if you need a couple more minutes logging in. Okay, I see a couple hands here. And raise your hand if you need help logging in. Because sometimes it just can be confusing and your browser can be acting weird. Okay, I think everyone is in. Mary, you're in? Okay. There's Wi-Fi. Okay. Mary? Crystal, can you log in, help Mary to log in? Yeah, sometimes it can be really tricky. Okay, so where's my mouse? Alrighty. Here's your first question is coming in. Most of you are. Okay. Wait, where's my? I feel like I need to refresh. Just really weird. Oh, did we switch? Okay, just wait for us. Visual extend, right?
That's what we're on right now. That's why it's up there.
I don't know why it's not. Okay, just sit tight there for a second.
Go ahead and get the screen up again that you need.
I don't see the screen.
Is that a different one?
Yeah, no, this should be it. Let me refresh. Maybe this one has been on for too long. Well, yeah. Okay, sit tight. So, is the question on the screens? Okay, it's just not showing. Yes, perfect.
There's another one open, is what I'm trying to say.
So,
Yeah, so you're good for that question, and so she
I have no idea why this one is not working. See how this one is, it's not showing me anything here. Uh-oh. Disaster. Okay, I'm refreshing my screen. It's been idle for way too long. Yeah, that's what it was. It's been sitting for way too long. Hey, I've learned something today. If my meeting sift is sitting on the computer for 3 hours, it needs reload. But how about I'm going to activate the second question for you folks and try to figure out results for the screen. And if we don't see the results, then we'll just share the final report with everyone. Okay, is the second question. Oh, maybe. Okay, my technology is crashing. It's not here. See, it's not here, it's empty. Mm-mm. Or maybe my internet is crashing. Who knows what's happening? Do you have your second question on the screen? Not yet? Okay, the internet is officially crashing on this computer. Picture, we tried. Okay, we'll start with that next time. How about that? Excellent. Yes, we'll start with that. It just crashed here, look at that.
Thanks, Ned. Okay, now we really are going to ask you to take pictures. The next steering committee meeting is going to be April 1st. April Fools. So again, thanks in advance for all of that. Please humor us with the photos. It will really help us get to know each other. No judgments on the pictures. It's been a long day for all of us. Thank you so much for your time. The location will be here, but it'll be in the agenda. I think it's here. Here? Okay. Is that showing any connectivity there?